Hi, it's Cece Bickrow again from the University of Colorado, and I'm here today to talk to you about Chapter 5 of the Circle of Life curriculum. We're getting very close to the end, so hang in there, you can do this. Chapter 5 is a chapter that covers a lot of material that may be uncomfortable and a little bit sensitive. It's the first time in the curriculum that we mention HIV, STIs, sexually transmitted infections, AIDS. So it may be a little difficult for you, and if you're not feeling very comfortable about it, you may want to talk to a nurse or a community health educator, somebody who can help you learn more about HIV and AIDS and communicable diseases, STIs. What we're going to be demonstrating today, though, with the activities is pretty fun, and it's going to help us drive home the point to the youth that we're working with about how to protect ourselves from getting HIV or AIDS or any STIs, and strengthening our circles by making better decisions using our volition to do that. So along with the web activities and these classroom activities and discussions that you're going to have with the students, you should be able to, or the participants should be able to list 6 facts about AIDS. They should be able to identify the skin as a major barrier to HIV entering the blood. They should be able to list ways in which you cannot get AIDS. They should also be able to explain what HIV does to the immune system, identify the 4 body fluids in which HIV can live. They should be able to state 4 ways that HIV and AIDS can be transmitted. And finally, they should be able to write goals for strengthening their own personal circle of life. Again, we will start the chapter with the question box. So again, you'll have time to prepare for the question box just before the session starts. And you'll want to be checking that each and every time, and by now you're probably sick of us telling you about that, but we still do it anyway. So then what I'd like to do is to remind you what we've been working on. So in Chapter 1, we learned about circles, balance, and the circle of life. Chapter 2, we talked about the stages of life and adolescence. In Chapter 3, we talked about consequences, both short-term and long-term, and how they may affect our circle of life and making good decisions. Chapter 4, we talked about transmitting diseases, what are communicable and non-communicable diseases. In Chapter 5, we're going to really focus on HIV, AIDS, STIs, and hepatitis transmission, and how we can protect ourselves and our circles. Before you get started, you may want to ask students some questions about some of the things that we've been learning about. Ask them what's the difference between communicable and non-communicable diseases. You also might want to ask, what are the 4 body fluids where HIV can live? Just kind of reminding them and have them listed out. If they're struggling, having trouble, kind of give them little hints. It starts with the S. Might be a Navy man, a seaman. So that is Chapter 5, Activity 1. Getting attendance done, going through the question box, having a discussion about some of the things that they've learned from previous chapters can take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. This whole activity, classroom time, should take anywhere from 50 to 60 minutes, probably no more than an hour.
I'm a member of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe, and it's a Lakota tribe in South Dakota. And I am also working on the Circle of Life project with the University of Colorado. And we are doing, as one of the activities in Chapter 5, we're going to do an activity called Skin is Tough. And there are 2 purposes for this activity that we're about to demonstrate for you. And the first one is that the virus that causes AIDS must enter the bloodstream to infect someone. And the second objective is to show that human skin is a very effective barrier against infection as long as there are no open sores or cuts to let the virus through. So we're going to go ahead and show you how the activity is done. The first part of the experiment, we take water and fill up 2 glasses of water, or get them about halfway full. And then we're going to place a little bit of red food coloring in one of the glasses. And this is going to represent blood. The red in the glass is the blood that's in our bloodstream, and the glass itself is actually our bodies that are holding the blood. The blue food dye that we put in the second glass is going to represent the HIV virus. And so the first part of the experiment, we're going to take a little piece of paper towel and put it over. Let's do this so we can see the glass a little easier. And we're going to put it over the red food coloring to show that this is the barrier. And we're going to take the blue, which represents the virus again, and we're going to pour just a little bit of that on, a few drops, onto the glass with the red. And what the student is going to notice is that by dropping a few droplets of the blue into the red, it discolors the red and it gets into the bloodstream. The virus gets into the bloodstream. So that's the first part of the experiment. And you can have the group members talk about what they observe, how the water is becoming discolored by way of putting the blue into the red. So that's the first part of the experiment. And also, it's the time to explain that if our skin were like paper towel, it would not be able to keep the HIV virus from seeping into our bodies and then entering the blood system. But our skin is not like the paper towel. It is much stronger. And so to represent that, we're going to do the experiment again. First by pouring out this and getting some new clear blood, which is again represented by the red food dye. It still had a little coloring in it, but we're going to add a few more drops. This represents the blood that's inside our bodies. And we're going to take this time a little bit of plastic wrap and put that securely over the red glass of water. And then we're going to take the blue, which represents the virus again, and pour a little bit on top of that. And that demonstrates that our skin is a lot like the plastic wrap. If our skin is not compromised by sores or holes or anything, then it separates our blood from the virus. The final part of the experiment, we're going to take some toothpicks and we're going to poke holes in the plastic wrap. And the holes are going to represent what happens when our skin is compromised by, a sore or a cut, and would allow the virus then the ability to pass through our skin and get into our bloodstream, which you can see has discolored now, and you could hear it actually going in. But now it's mixing with our blood and has gotten into our bloodstream. So again, with that final part of this lesson, we can explain to the students that a cut in the skin is like the pinholes in the plastic wrap. Cuts in the skin can let the virus, HIV, into a person's blood.
Okay, for activity 3 in chapter 5, What we're going to do is a cakewalk. And maybe some of you have played cakewalk before, maybe you've played musical chairs. It's the same concept. You'll have numbered cards, and you'll want to fasten them to the floor, to the carpet, with maybe masking tape or some kind of tape, because they'll be stepping on them. So after a while, the edges are going to get kind of tattered. I brought along some bracelets, but you'll want to use some other kinds of prizes that you might have in the club store, or some kind of incentive. Maybe give them a little extra privileges as a little prize for this game. What we're going to do is we're going to start music. You'll also want to have a music player. You'll start the music and let it play for 10 to 15 seconds. Stop the music, and then you'll draw a number out of a hat, and it will be one of these numbers, and you'll number it however many students that you have in the class. You'll draw that number, and whichever youth is standing on that number, you'll then ask them one of the questions. And we have provided 12 questions for you, true or false, and we have the answers that are provided as well. So if somebody stopped on the first question, or any number, number 8, you'll still ask the first question. You can get AIDS if someone coughs on you. Is that true or false? And the student answers false. They get to keep the number. If they answer incorrectly, they continue on. They just don't get a number. So you keep all the students in the game the whole time. The second question, you'll start the music again, and then after 10 to 15 seconds you'll stop, and then you'll have them draw another number, and whoever's standing on that number, it might be 20 at that time, you'll still ask the second question. You can get AIDS if you get bitten by a mosquito. Is that true or false? If they answer true, they don't get the number that you pulled out of the hat. If they answer false, they get it correctly, and they get to keep that number. So at the end of the game, the winner has the most numbers collected. And that's when they get the treat or the prize, whoever gets the most. Or you might also want to consider that some of them might tie, so you might have to have a couple of things available. That is activity number 3 of chapter 5. Okay. To my way.